Hello everyone. Today we'll talk about consumer and their buying behavior in this video. Yes, we will talk exactly what drives a consumer to a particular purchase. So the agenda is simple, very straight. We will try to frame up a model of consumer behavior, try to discuss the characteristics of effective, that is what affects an individual person. When I say individual person, it is the consumer that we are talking about it with respect to his or her purchasing ability, power, and affinity towards it. Types of buying decisions behavior, the buyer's decision process per se, and the buyer decision process for a new product, a product which the consumer is going to experience for the first time, be it a product or a service. Yes, we will talk about it. So the models, the characteristics, the types of behaviors, the process thereby, and what happens when it is a new product which is in the question. Models of consumer behavior. First and foremost thing, let us try to understand what consumer buyer behavior is all about it. Remember, it's the buying behavior for final consumer, be it an individual, a household, a group of people who buys goods, probably services for personal consumption, for as an end user. When you buy a group as a group, let's say you are buying a football for a club. So it's a group that is going to consume the football. Oh, what quality of football you are going to go around it? And there are plentiful of quality for an individual item like football, which is available at different price points. So we need to understand. So as a group, you are going to consume it. As an individual, you obviously consume a lot many things. As a family, you might consume a lot many things. As a family. Uh, so there we need to understand what consumer market is all about it. It's all the personal consumption of an end consumer, the final consumer per se. So the behavior, let us try. First and foremost thing, it is the environment which is the stimulus. Stimulus for the person, for the group, the family to make a purchase. What are the marketing stimuli? It can be product, it can be price, it can be place, it can be promotion. What is in terms of product? Product is what entices you. All of you might be accessing this video through a device. It might be a laptop, it might be an Android device, it might be even an Apple iPhone, right? So how do we go across with it? It's a product that you're going to go. Remember, this video remains same. Is the material, the product where you are going to access, be it an Android devices, which most likely might be the cases, be it a laptop, which might be another things, which might be in the Windows environment, OS, or even an iPhone on an iPad. So it's a product that we are talking about it in terms of a device. Then there are price points for every product that you go or you are enjoying this video at different price point of the product that you've actually purchased it. Next most determinant would be the place where the product is actually available. You might have the deep pockets in your you might have deep pockets, but eventually that product is not available in your vicinity. Now that becomes an impediment, so it has to be placed. And definitely promotions which entices you, probably attracts you to make a purchase. So product, price, place, promotion is what we talk about it. Others are economic, technological, social, and culture, as the case might be. The environment leads to the buyer's black box. It's the buyer's characteristics, buyer's decision process, as the case might be. The buyer's black box actually, now this is where the buyers will be talking in terms of the deep pocket, accessibility, whether he or she is going to enjoy the product, what is the frequency that he or she is going to enjoy it or experience it. So those are the buyer's characteristics and decision process that will make impetus to make the final purchase, and that is where the final response is all about it. The environment leads to buyer's black box, and that leads to a buyer responses with the buying attitude, preferences, purchase behaviors. When the buyers buy, when, where, and how much. Brand and company relationship behavior is what we all talk around it, and that is what needs to be understood every now and then. Characteristics of effective consumer behaviors. What is the consumer behavior we're talking about it? Now, these, see, this is an end consumer. The buyer is out here where my cursor is tinkling, right? This is a buyer behavior, but what actually impedes out altogether? It is from the background that he or she belongs to, be it cultural, subcultural, social class. Social class might be economic that we are talking about it. It might be a certain rigid system that, and the society might be following it around it. So we have cultures, subculture, and social class, which base the forms the base or foundation of the behavior. Then it gets filtered to social things where it is your reference group, your immediate colleagues, co-worker, teammates, family, friends who are enjoying the product. That's your reference point. Be it what we're talking about it, the reference group, the family, the roles and status. Then it becomes a little bit more personal in terms of at what age group that uh, you are there. You at the age group of 20 to 30 years old, 30 to 40 years old, 40 to 50 years old, 50 to 60 years old, and beyond 60 years old, because every age group will have every certain dignity that will be flowing with that age. There will be certain experiences that a person would like to gather and probably imply it. There might be a much more of an impetus buying at the age of 20 to 30, which might not be the case at the age of 50 to 60. People would be pondering over things and before actually making a big ticket purchase. So yes, age and life cycle stage is very important. Occupation that one person is following around it, economic situation, lifestyle, personality, and self-concept as the case might be. From there onward, it is your individual psyche that comes into play in terms of motivation, perception, learning, beliefs, attitude, and you have it as a buyer. These are exactly the characteristics that a consumer actually goes through before making a purchase. Let me address each of them one by one. So, culture is a learned values, perception. That is what is there in your upbringing, which you have experienced it throughout your childhood. What was there in the society, the perception, the wants, the behavior from the family and other important institution, and its most basic cause of person's wants and behavior, as the case might be. Now, this is culture. People might talk me about subcultures. So going beyond certain barriers would be very difficult. So I have taken an example of the American society to discuss it about the subculture. You might take it into a South Asian context, you might take it in an African context, you might take it in a Middle East concept, and it remains more or less same. So let us go into the subcultures of an American society, perhaps. Now we have something called Hispanic Americans, African American, Asian American, and cross cultural, where there are a mix of people, where people of different cultures, faith, race, skin color might get married and form a bonding from a family. So for this, they have a certain experiences, certain situation which is unique to them, and that is what the American society would be talking about it in terms of subculture. Again, repeat, it's a Hispanic American, the African American, the Asian American, the cross cultural American. Put it in the Middle East, you will have different kinds of the non-natives Arabs, the natives Arabs, the let's say the gender-based bias in Arab countries about the female gender, about the male gender, the rich, the affluent Arabs, and not so rich. So everywhere you have those subcultures that gets built upon it, and that needs to be kept into concern. I have only spoken about the American concept, probably a few hint of the Arab culture. It can be extrapolated to South Asian, East Asian, Middle East, African, South African, and so on and so forth. Similarly, the social class. Social class of society is relatively permanent, probably ordered divisions where members share similar values, similar interests, similar behavior. It depends upon the society that one gets to go around it. So people might be rich, uber rich, moderately rich, definitely poor, and extremely poor. And you have your social class built around, measured by a combination of occupation, income, education, wealth, and other variables that come. The characteristics of affecting consumer behavior, the groups and the social norm, as the case might be. Membership group. Now, this is a group where people directly belong to, with the direct influences to which a person belongs. So, if I am from a middle class society, probably I belong to it. Where if I'm come from an uber rich society, I probably belong from it. Now, if I'm coming from probably the teenage group, probably that's a group that I belong to. It's a teenage group. If I'm into a certain gendered or certain attributes of a life that I belong to, or probably I ascribe to, that's the membership group that I fall upon. You are there inbred. Now comes on the aspirational group. Now this is a group where you don't belong, but you want to belong, groups in which you want to belong. So if I am a middle class income person, probably I want to become a rich fellow, right? Probably if I'm a rich fellow, I want to be an uber rich fellow. If I have certain influences within my family, I want to increase my influences towards my society. Now these are my aspirational groups that I want to belong to. And then there's something called reference group that forms a comparison or referencing in forms of attitude or behavior. What are the group that display everybody, in fact most of us would like to be into a developed nation, right? So what kind of lifestyle those people are actually leading? Won't you like to lead it, probably live it? Yes, you want to live those groups, so that becomes your reference group as per se. So yes, groups in social network, we have a membership group, we have an aspirational group, and the reference group thereby. Talking about the social network, this is where the word of mouth influences and the buzz marketing offers. Opinion leaders nowadays in social media age are known as influencers. Are people within a reference group who exert a social influence on others? Did I say opinion leaders? Did I mention influencer? Also called influencers or leading adopters. Marketers identify them to use the brand ambassador per se. Now, then we have something called online social network. Now, these are nothing but online communities. People might not get in touch on face to face or in person. They might not communicate, but online presence is always there. Online, they might be sharing their thoughts. So, where people socializes, exchange information, include blogs, social networking sites, let's say Facebook, virtual world, Second Life, and so on. Then comes the social factors. Now, this is where it's most important of consumer behaviors. Social factors in what ambiences that a person is being set up. Social roles and status are groups, family, club, and organization that a person belongs to, and that can define role and social status thereby. Talking about personal factors, the age and the life cycle, yes, the mm, the mentality of a teenager will not match with the mentality of a 30 or 40 years old person. Similarly, the 30 years, 40 years person will not be matching with the mentality or the thought process above 60 years old. Now, this is what age and life cycle stage is all about it. Personic X lifestyle segmentation system. There are 70 segments and 21 life stage groups that goes around it, which includes taking hold of young, energetic couples, families. Transition blues are blue colored, less educated, mid income, and so on and so forth. So there are so many stages segmented. The market has already been done through and probably has been tried and tested thereby. Talking about personal factors, occupation affects the goods and services brought by consumer. Economic situation includes trends, personal income, savings, interest rates, and these are personal factors that comes into play. I again repeat, personal income, savings, and interest rate. Lifestyle is a person's pattern of living as expressed in his or probably her psychographic measured of AIOs. AIOs are nothing but activities, interest, and opinions. Activities, interest, and opinion differs from person to person. Only few persons activities will be similar. Only few person interest would be of similar. Few of the people's opinion might match together. Need to understand, need to capture those information to understand their views as far as environment is concerned. That is what lifestyle is all about it. Personality, the unique psychological characteristic that leads to consistent and lasting response to the consumer environment. And this is very important for one to go forward. Let us talk about other behaviors. Now, what are we have spoken about the personal factors. Now, there might be dominance, there might be autonomy. Now, what is the dominance? Dominance of a certain companies. You have only a product which is of a certain company which is flooded in the market. You don't have much of an opinion options. You don't have much of a leeway altogether. Then comes this autonomy. Autonomy is where you might be stringent in terms of spending power. Your hands might be tied. The money flow is very constrained. So, are you autonomy? Now, what can be done? Do you go for equated monthly installment, as in EMI, or you go for deferred purchases, as the case might be? Now, these are the related factors that affects our consumer behavior. Then we have defensiveness, adaptability, and aggressiveness, as the case might be. Now, defensiveness, wherein you are there to make the most precarious purchases in a very limited fashion. You don't go going for an outrageous purchases every now and then. Adaptability, with the flow of things, you need to adapt yourself. Keep on changing because you need to be with the motion, with the society. Otherwise, you tend to lag behind. And then there is something called aggressiveness, just the opposite of a defensiveness, where you make outrageous purchases. You might require it, you might not require the product. Just because it is there in vogue, that's just because it is there in style, you make it, and that becomes a consumer behavior. Psychological factors, motivation, perception, learning, beliefs, and attitude are most important thing that a person goes for making any kind of purchases. Most importantly, the big ticket purchases. If you are going to purchase a car, the motivation is to travel from point A to point B. But then you have cars which is available for approximately $6,000, $7,000 to around 70,000, 80,000, or even $1 million. So what kind of purchase that you want to go around it? It depends on the perception. It depends upon belief, attitude. Remember, both the cars of $7,000 and $70,000, perhaps $1 million car will only serve the purpose of traveling you from distance A to distance B, or point A to point B, as the case might be. So your perception, your learning, your belief, your motivation makes a very big impact during the purchasing behavior. So psychological factors, motivation that is sufficiently present in the person to seek satisfaction. Remember, you are going to make a purchase of a car. Motivation research refers to the qualitative research designed to probe consumer hidden, probably subconscious motivation. The idea is the individual has to travel from distance from point A to point B. Right. Now, this individual is definitely traveling from point A to point B, but suddenly this individual desires to have a car, own a car for the making the same travel distance altogether. Now, that's the motivation research that goes around it. So, yes, we can talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which starts right at the bottom with physiological needs, hungers and thirst. Then we have the safety needs, securities and protection. Social needs, sense of belonging, love. Esteem needs, self esteem, recognition, status. Self actualization needs are self development and realization, as the case might be. So, yes, an individual would love to have those physiological needs met first, then probably ensure that the physiological needs are always there, the security and protection. Then probably comes in the emotional need, the sense of belonging, the social need. The emotional need tends to get heightened with the esteem needs, the self-esteem, recognition, status, and eventually the self-actualization process takes place. Psychological factors, as in perception. Now, perception was the motivation was to make a big ticket purchase in terms of a car. The perception is how the gentleman actually selects the car. Why? Because it is not only going to serve his or her purposes, but how he or she is going to be perceived by the society. That is becomes very important. So yes, we talk in terms of selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention, as the case of the three perceptual process that goes around it. Should you buy a $7,000 car, $70,000 car? You have to decide, because it is going to be deciding your perceptions amongst the people whom you care the most. Selective attention is a tendency of people to screen out most of the information to which they are exposed. Absolutely, yes. Screen out most of the information. Why? Because you want their basic core things to be met. Selective distortion is the tendency for people to interpret information in a way that they believe is going to support them, their thoughts. So it is selective distortion, as in what I believe is the true thing, because whatever I believe is what the whole society or my friends, my families are going to believe in. Selective retention is a tendency to remember good points made about the brand that they favor and forget good points about the competing brands, perhaps. So that is where you're getting biased out here. Remember, selective attention. So we have selective attention. Selective attention is your requirement. Selective distortion is what you are basically passionate about and probably ignoring others' things, others' point of view. And selective retention is complete biasness towards your preferred brand, as the case might be. So, yes, the learnings are what we are looking into it. We need to purchase a car, probably there's a drive. Stimuli, what kind of car we going to making a purchase? Is it going to be a four-wheel drive, or two-wheel drive? You need to design around it. Remember, we're talking about cars. Cues are the clues that comes around it. Should it be a comfortable journey? Should it be a weekender car? Should it be a daily going, office going cars? Responses and reinforcement accordingly, depending upon the price points, depending upon the promotion, depending upon the service availability, and so on and so forth. Belief is a descriptive thought that a person has about something based upon KOF, which is knowledge, opinion, and faith. Knowledge, what kind of knowledge he or she has. Opinion, what kind of opinion that he believes the other people have about the product. And faith is the trust in the product that goes around it. Attitude describes a person relative consistent evaluation. Feelings, tendencies towards an object or an idea. It's the attitude, it's a personal biasness towards a product. Types of buying behaviors might be plentiful. We have complex buying behaviors, we have dissonance reducing buying behaviors, habitual buying behaviors, and variety seeking buying behavior. Complex buying behaviors, completely confusing, completely misunderstood, and often difficult to decipher. Dissonance is wherein we need to purchase a car. Yes, the basic model will do and serve the purpose. Dissonance reduce. The rest, everything needs to be avoided. Habitual buying behavior is constantly purchasing probably car every 2 years, every 3 years. Every time some model has been released, there is an urge in the individual to make a purchase or go for the next variety. That's what variety seeking behaviors is all about it. Four types of buying behaviors. We have significant difference between brand and there's a high involvement. That depends on the x-axis in involvement and on the y-axis the differences. When there's a significant differences, high involvement, it is a complex buying behavior. Why? Because there is absolutely big differences between model 1, model 2, company A, company B. And high involvement because there are a lot of people who are going to decide upon the usage of that product. I was talking about the car. It can be your accommodation. It can be anything that we talk about it. But what happens when the significant difference between brand and there's a low involvement? Why low involvement? Because it's the only gentleman or the lady who is going to be using it, experiencing it. So probably when there is an individual experiential, the individual might tie up with an idea of variety seeking, and that is where he or she is going to make a purchase every now and then. Then there's this can be anything and everything. It can be a chocolate. Probably you have a high-end chocolate which can be approximately 0.49 cents, probably, and then 4.99 cents. That's a difference that goes around it. We $4.99, sorry. So then we have something called few differences between brands, as in dissonance reducing in terms of high involvement. And so there are few differences. Absolutely every other product, every other things that is there in the market is more or less identical, but it's highly involved. There are a lot many people who are going to consume that end product. So there is a dissonance reducing buying behaviors, and that is what we talk around it. Similarly, when there's a few differences and low involvement, it's an habitual buying behaviors. Remember, I gave you another example of a chocolate. If it is 0.49 cents, brand A, 0.49 cents for brand B, 0.49 cents for brand C. So irrespective of what you purchase, brand A, B, or C, you are going to spend the same amount of money. So it's an habitual buying behaviors. Absolutely, yes. The buyer decision process, now how do we go around it? The need recognition.
from point number A to point number B, you need to make a travel, so you need to have a car. Information search, this is where you're going to find how many cars are available, at what price point, what are the availability, the place, the product, the promotion, who is giving the maximum discounts, evaluation of the alternatives accordingly. Purchasing decision based upon your availability of fund requirement and motivations, you make a post purchase behavior thereby. The buyer decision process is need recognition occurs when the buyer recognizes a problem or need triggered by internal stimuli and external stimuli. This is what we need to understand. So your need recognition, does it comes from within you, or is it around you that actually forces you to make a purchase? If it is within you, it is an internal stimuli. If it is around you, it's the external stimuli that we are talking about it. Information search. Now, where do we go for those information search? We might make up personal sources in terms of family, friends, relatives, people in the vicinity who have experienced a product. Commercial sources are the advertising, the internet. The public sources are the mass media, consumer organizations. You have it, and they will bump you and probably thump you, probably bombard you with information. Experiential sources is handling, examining, using the product. Experiential sources are your retail format where you can go touch the product, go for a test drive, and so on and so forth. The buyer decision process in terms of evaluation of alternatives. Now, did I say about cars that we're talking about here? There's a lady who is testing a number of television before making a purchase. Similarly, for car, you can have brand A, brand B, company A, company B, model 1, model 2, and so on and so forth. Vicinity, place A, place B, place C, from where the retail counters are available for the company. So you need to understand those things, right? Purchase decision is where the consumer actually makes the purchase depending upon his or her preferred brand. The purchase decision can be affected by attitude of others, unexpected reasons, or situational factors. So yes, post-purchase decision, the satisfaction or dissatisfaction that the consumer feels after the purchase. That can be a relationship between an expectations and the perceived performances. Did it meet it, or did it exceed it, or did not able to match it? So that is what the relationship is all about. It the larger the gap between expectation and performance is, the greater the consumer dissatisfaction, and smaller the gap or no gap, probably more happy the consumer is all about it. Cognitive dissonance is the discomfort comfort caused by post-purchase conflict. The post-purchase decisions are where the customer satisfaction is key to building profitable relationship with consumer to keep growing consumers and reaping their customer lifetime value for ages to come. Adoption process is the mental process an individual goes through. First, learning about innovations to final regular use. Stages in process includes awareness, interest, evaluation, trial, and adoption thereby. So yes, we are talking about awareness. First, you got to get to know about it. Interest, develop a probably affinity to a certain thing. Evaluation, the alternatives. Trial, have go to the experiential center, experience the product, and before adopting or making the purchase thereby. So differences in innovators adopted categories are innovators, early adopters, early mainstream, late mainstream, lagging adopters. The first purchasers who wants to go whenever the product has been launched into the market are innovators. Following the first purchasers, people start jumping in the early adopters, and then actually a lot of people mix. That's what early mainstream is all about it. Before it becomes into the society of the late mainstream, and then finally there are late adopters who are most conservative of the purchaser. So yes, we talk about the influence of product characteristics and the rate of adoption is relative advantage, compatibility, complexity, divisibility, and communicability. These five things makes a much more of a priority for the rate of adoption is all about it. The relative advantage, the compatibility, the complexity, the divisibility, and community. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. Thank you for watching this video till the end.